Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Kaki Lee, a mindset coach and healer who's on a mission to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women from around the world who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, I'm excited to be interviewing Grace Harris, an international coach and speaker in women empowerment and the founder of Become the Women of Your Dreams Academy. Grace has worked personally with over 5,000 men and women from around the world to discover their life purpose and live the life of their dreams. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us today. Do I have you there, Grace?
You do. Hi, Kaki. Thank you for having
Hello.
me. I am
Yeah.
really looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me on the Awaken Feminine podcast. Before we dive in, can you share with us a little bit more about what you do, a little bit about you and where you're joining us from?
Love to, love to. Yeah, so I'm joining you from the Gold Coast in Australia, the other side of where you are in Australia. And I was originally born and raised in the Philippines, southern Philippines, and I lived there until I was 25 years old. And I guess for what I do now as an international coach, speaker, and founder of Become the Woman of Your Dreams Academy, it really all stems back from that place where I have been born and raised, because at the age of 5 there, I was abandoned. So I was effectively an orphan from 5.5 and up. And I was exposed to a household where, whilst I was living with relatives, I was really raising myself. I had to really mature pretty quickly because I was exposed to things that a child should never be exposed. And so my journey had been that I was sort of reborn to a different entity when I was abandoned, because I was very, from what I can remember, I was very close to my mother and she didn't have any explanation. She just left me there. And so all of a sudden, when I thought I was so loved, I was actually abandoned. So there was a death of experience of death right from that day. And so not actually, I was speaking to another group of women yesterday, and someone raised the question of how did you learn to trust people again. It was an interesting question because I never thought about it before, but it turns out that I've never really learned to trust fully until I was 39 or 40 years old. So it
Wow.
took a long time.
Yeah.
But the story of me teaching women is because I'm so passionate, because what's happened to me is it was hard to spot that I was suffering from anything. But now I know I was suffering from high functioning depression, anxiety, and imposter syndrome, because I had so much success superficially. You could see that most aspects of my life was in good order.
Yeah.
But I was, for the life of me, I could not get my relationships right, which was the most important, the thing that I longed for the most.
Yeah.
Connectedness, belongingness, love. It was really the area that died for me when I was 5, and so um, that was the journey.
Yeah. Wow. It's so profound to be abandoned by, it heartbreaking for a child to be abandoned by the mother. And it's amazing, how far you've come from, that little girl who's been hurt and lost and finding yourself again, and now really speaking out and empowering other women and other people to, step into their truth and have that connectedness as well. So Grace, I think we met about 2.5 years ago at a personal development retreat, and we spent like over a week together. And I just love that, we grew so much in that time. And also I love that we're both pursuing our passions now, you with your speaking, and I think you started going off into doing your own things a bit earlier than me, and now I'm stepping into that as well. So it's just beautiful to, share that time with you when we were at that retreat, and then seeing that growth in you. You've grown like so much since I've met you. It's amazing. So Grace, I want to dive a bit more deeper into your journey. So you've kind of told us bits and pieces already, but I know, what was the path, what were you doing before you decided to change your path and become an international coach and speaker? So that journey from where you were, I guess, in your career and then to doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'd love to share. But I'll just go back very quickly to what
Yeah.
you said about you and me meeting 2.5 years ago, I am also very, very, proud to know you, because I also saw when we met, both our growth really. So that makes my heart really inspired,
Yeah.
as I do work with women, and so it fills me up
Yeah.
when women empower themselves. And speaking of which, the transition that I made for myself is, I was in corporate for a long time, collectively together probably about over 20 years, but the last corporate gig I did was about 12 years. It's with one of the big four banks in Australia. And in the last good half of that 12 years, I was a business banker. And so this career is very important for my growth, Kaki, because prior to that, I was a divorcee and technically a single mother.
Mm.
And the said marriage of that divorce was quite toxic, in that it was obviously my belief system that led me to such relationship, and so therefore I was fully accountable for that. But where the corporate career was very important was because it was an environment that was really it was so structured, and it was so, I hate to use this word, but it's true. It's very sterile culture, in a way that you know that no one's going to disrespect you, because everyone is just there to, every person that works there has integrity. It's a bank.
Yeah.
You can't really work in a bank if your integrity is not fully measured
Yeah.
and actually seen to be a shining value. So I guess the trusting others started for me there, and I've developed some really good friendships. People that have asked me, "How are you?" Like really, honestly, wanting to know how am I on a daily basis, without any hidden agenda. And so it slowly resuscitated my heart, I guess, into a form of, there is good in humanity, and I needed that long 12 years. I needed that. If it was any shorter, it probably wouldn't have fully worked. But then I came to a point where, when you grow, you do grow for a reason. And to honor the growth is that for you to keep stepping up into the growth. And what happened to me was, as I was exposing myself to personal development materials and really learning more about myself and getting to like myself a lot more, I was finding my conversations with my business clients shifting from profit and loss to asset finance to business loans, shifting from there to deeper conversations about their goals and dreams, about their deepest desires, and what holds them back, or what pushes them forward to reach for the risky things, but that make them inspired and get out of bed in the day. So it wasn't to the best interest of my employer, because I wasn't really interested by my KPI anymore.
Yeah.
My conversations were really evolving into something deeper, and I noticed that. And so I felt the need to honor that. And so then I knew, okay, so it is time to step away from the bank. And so I've endeavored to hold a business. And so, which I did. I was lucky enough to find a business that was in the personal development industry. And I had, my mission in transitioning into becoming an entrepreneur really was, it was simple. At the time, I wasn't, so people ask me this question: when you left the corporate industry, did you know what you were going to do? Like the actual picture of it? The answer is no. I knew that I had something bigger waiting for me, but the picture, I couldn't imagine that just yet. I knew I had to get out first, and to get out first, there was a couple of things that I needed to prove to myself, being the control freak that I was. And yeah, it's a funny term, but it was something that I had to develop very early on so that I could stay sane. So as
Yeah.
a control freak, I thought to myself, I have 6 months to prove to myself that I can create profit from a business. And so I was, and it's an ambitious thing to say to myself, of all people. Being a business banker, I know that 90% of startup businesses will fold in the first 12 months. That's just a statistical
Yeah.
fact. but I still challenged myself. I said, so, stuff the statistical fact. I want to challenge myself because this is my proof. If I can prove this, I'll stay in the entrepreneurial world. Now, I don't recommend that to be the mindset for everyone, because
Yeah.
if sustainability does not work like that, longevity does not work like that. But for me, in my case, because I had an entity that I had to still battle with, because this is like years ago now, about 2017. So 3.5 years ago, I had to battle with a control freak entity. Once I've proven that, yes, made the profit that I want, proven myself. And so once I got comfortable in the fact that, okay, I'm not just made for corporate, I can also make it in business. Then I really got serious about, let me know, show me what my calling is. And that was the real deep
Yeah.
dive, that's to put it mildly, because
Yeah.
to find your purpose, you have to face some pretty confronting stuff about
Yeah.
yourself. And I'm so glad that I made the journey.
Yeah. Oh, I've got goosebumps. And I just love your story where you just, well, as you say, you don't know, you leave something and you don't know what the bigger picture is. Like, I was the same. I'm a control freak as well. I'm a recovering control freak. Um, but going from, a pharmacy a pharmacist in the hospital, being a manager, to stepping into this entrepreneur world, you've got that security and that structure. Everything just works. And when you go into this entrepreneur world, you don't have a manual, right? And there are people teaching you, but you kind of you take bits and pieces and you discover your own you build your own manual, right? And you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, with this podcast, I don't know what's going to happen with it. But it's just believing in yourself enough to take that step to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no manual, and and I guess you make it, you do it as you go along, being
Yeah.
the true you. So, and that's, if you think about it, though, that's life, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
mothering, for example, there is no book that says this is how to mother.
Yeah.
Step one, put the nappy on. Step two,
Yeah.
take the nappy off. It's not right. Yeah.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
wish there was a manual for mothering because it'll make it a lot easier, but you learn, right?
Yeah.
So, and you've had quite a journey, but what was that? What was that point that went, I'm going to become a coach and speaker? What was the catalyst that made you decide to transition to that particular, I guess, career, a path?
It was a little gradual, but it was very clear. So what happened was this: after about 6 or 7 months in this business I was talking about, where I was transitioning from
Mm,
being a corporate employee, I made a really big profit on my 6 or 7 months. I was pretty surprised myself,
mm,
So my self leadership was so boosted. And then so I was working that business, and as I step into my own rhythm as an entrepreneur, I find some pockets of time that I was free to do what I want to do, like an hour here, 2 hours there. And working from home now, I could do practically anything I want, like go shopping and or whatever. But obviously I didn't go shopping. So I wanted to grow more, and I attended this one day event about speaking, right? And so I was invited to go into a speaking boot camp. And I said, oh, yeah, I think that I would love to elevate my, speaking skills and really be able to communicate in a way that I want to reach many people to spread what I want to say. Now, it was interesting because there must have been some kind of a belief system still hanging around there somewhere, because when I was given a calendar of boot camps, so I was there on a September, and I said to them, I'll attend it in May next year. So what is like 6 months?
yeah.
And they said, okay, it's a bit far away, but if you want. And so that was that. But when I went home about 2 weeks, there was a voice in my head that said, why are you waiting so long? What's holding you back?
Yeah.
And I listened to that voice, and I couldn't answer the question. Like, I don't see anything holding me back, but I feel like I don't want to do it just yet. And so the question, so this is now, I recognize this voice as the true, as my authentic me, constantly questioning things that may be working against me.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to honor that voice as I grow into myself.
Yeah.
And I did. I went back and I changed my mind. I said, look, I'm doing it next month instead of in May next year. And when I did that, when I went through the 3-day boot camp, the ending of that boot camp is that you actually create a keynote for six minutes and you present it to the entire class. I had a class of 67 boot campers from all over Australia. They're all entrepreneurs as well. And so it's a safe place. You get to create a keynote of the deepest lesson that you have learned in your life.
Mm.
You have 3 days to create this keynote. And the keynote that I created, which I didn't know I was going to, was all about the one day that I was abandoned by my mother.
Wow.
And that's where, and after delivering this keynote, I just realized this is my calling, is to empower others so that this won't happen again to any child. Did you know that in the Philippines alone, there are 2 million abandoned children?
No, I didn't.
Abandonment is an
Wow.
epidemic in the world. And a lot of people ask me nowadays, okay, so if you are wanting to help children not experience what you've experienced, why don't you help children directly?
Mm.
But my answer to that is by empowering women, it is the only way that we can really reduce the number of abandonment, because by empowering women, it will ripple effect to different generations,
Yes.
multi-generational ripple effects.
Yes.
By making women love themselves truly, it makes it so that they are able to give that self-love and emanate that to others, and really create a world where there is no grief, where there is no, abandonment, or
Mm.
and when you empower one woman, you don't just empower a person, you empower a whole entire community
Yes.
and a whole entire world. They're like the greatest untapped reservoir of talent in the world. That's a quote from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Love that. And it's so true. Like, even with my podcast now, it's bring this community of women to rise up, right? To then share their love and their wisdom, and that creates the ripple. So, yeah, oh, I'm getting a bit emotional talking to you today. uh, so, Grace, you were talking about that inner voice that you have. So was there like a spiritual awakening or aha moment that where that voice decided to, come in? Did you have that voice before? How did this voice just come out of nowhere?
Oh my goodness, you're asking some deep questions today, which is very cool, very cool. There has always been a voice, Kaki, but not that one.
Yes.
Different one. Um, yeah, I call this other voice Pandora. She was an entity born when I was abandoned, and you read more. Actually, you read a lot about her in my memoir, which is about to be released.
Mm.
So she was an entity that wasn't really born in a linear perspective. She didn't have an age. She was an entity born from a pain perspective, so that the more pain she was subjected to from the age of 5 and onwards, the stronger she became.
Mm.
She was the one that that was incapable of trusting. She was the perfectionist. She was the successful person
Yeah.
on the surface. And so I heard that voice a lot. But when it came to the voice that was really pushing me to grow, I'm very, I'm so aware of her now, and I think that's just me now.
Yeah.
But the very first time that I've actually recognized, or I don't know, the very first time that um, I've given a proper cognition to something else other than me was when I had an inner child experience. And this is way back before I started personal development, way back before I went to become an entrepreneur. This is in 2014.
Mm.
So I was still working for the bank. But what happened for me was in 2013, I ended a toxic relationship. This wasn't the marriage. This is another one.
Okay.
See, I was in a self-sabotaging cycle, so that when I left a toxic marriage, I entered another toxic relationship.
Yeah.
It was that it was that, like I said, I was very successful everywhere else, but for the life of me, I couldn't get my relationships right. But anyway, I ended one in 2013, and then I had a near death experience in the same year as well. So I had a couple of very significant synchronistic spiritual life events that really led me to this moment in 2014. I was in my bedroom. I was just lying there early in the morning, and I woke up, and I remember saying a prayer to because this at this time my daughter was like 12 or 13.
Mm.
I know your daughter is a little Evie's
Yeah.
a little young, so she's not yet 12. But you know, when they turn 12 or 13, they start to become teeny tiny teenagers.
Yeah. I'm not looking
And
forward to that part. Mine's 5 at the moment, but anyway.
so my daughter was 12 or 13 at the time, and I remember I woke up and I said this prayer. I said, "Dear God, please help me to become the best mother that I can be to my daughter, because right now I don't really know how to do that, but if you help me, I'll do my best." And it was a prayer that I made because that was the truth. Like, I love my kids so much, but I just didn't know how to deal with a 12-year-old. And so it was just a prayer that it was a necessary prayer. And the next thing was, a thought came to my head that said, you know, if you want to raise a child fully, you need to love your own child first. And that really shocked me. And as it shocked me, I felt this energy. And I know it was a mirage, but I felt the energy, and I saw it was a little girl. It was me, like tiny little, you know, black hair, brown skin
Yeah.
image standing by the doorway. And I looked at her and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so that was the beginning. It was a
Yeah.
spiritual awakening for sure. I
Yeah.
went over to her and hugged her, and from then on, I began to recognize the voice, and that would ask me questions like, "Is that the best you can do?" Or, you know, just stuff like that. And I've learned to listen to it because of that
Yeah.
spiritual awakening.
Wow. Full goosebumps here. What a beautiful story of, really waking up to know that you weren't loving yourself. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. So, Grace, having gone through everything that you've gone through, and you've gone through a lot, you've touched on this, but what is your personal mission? What are you here on this earth to do? You can declare it here.
Well, I'm here to empower women to live a conscious life through the three stages of self-awareness, self-mastery, and legacy. I believe that by being fully self-aware, by healing yourself, you can then work on becoming a self-master, so that it doesn't mean that problems won't come your way. When you are fully self-aware, you can still experience grief, you can still experience job loss, you can still experience, you know, a death around you, but you will come to a place where you understand that you are connected to everything and everyone, and it's not so much about you, but it's about the universal love. It's about connectedness to others, and in that way you can be a self-master, so you can always guide people. You're not constantly struggling to survive. You're thriving, because as things happen around you, you guide others that, hey, I understand how you're feeling, I'm here for you. And so I empower them to come from that self-awareness into self-mastery. And the last stage of the Become the Woman of Your Dreams Academy is to allow them to choose the legacy that really resonates with them. Like, you know, like my legacy is to empower women and to become, you know, as a speaker, as I am a speaker, and to coach others. But your legacy might look different. But so in order for you to really be born into your legacy, you've got to be a self-master first, because that's the space where you can, it's a space of flow, the genius zone, where you're just free to receive what you are meant to receive and empower yourself. And imagine if all women are fully self-aware, and I have the capacity to be self-masters and help others, and they're really pursuing their purpose and their legacy. If everyone is in that space, imagine a world 100 years from now, a full consciousness shift. Like, for example, my daughter, she's 18 now. The way that she thinks now, her thought patterns are like thought patterns that I didn't really get to until I was like 38, 39.
Yeah. Your daughter's amazing how she thinks.
Well, it's a consciousness shift. Like as we all become self-aware and self-masters, the younger generation will become more and more aware at younger years. And so as a human species, I truly believe that as we shift into the consciousness, I don't know how long it's going to take, but even our biological makeup will change.
Yes.
Now we still have the really big, what's it called, lizard brain, the amygdala, the fight or flight. But as we shift into the consciousness, that's probably going to be smaller and smaller as new human beings are born, and the frontal cortex will expand. We'll
Yeah.
come to a place where we're probably capable of having mental telepathy,
Yeah.
because we're so conscious. And but the key is to begin now, to in your own small way. And so I'm so passionate about making women realize your power, and your power lies in your pain. Go back to that time when your life was changed, that defining moment, and make use of that power, because there is power there, and you will really rise up.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that so much, Grace. I'm so glad you're shining your bright light on this world and creating that ripple effect. And yes, everything that you said resonates so much in me. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to get a bit more personal with you if you're okay with
Yeah.
that. So, is there a particular experience? I mean, you've mentioned a few, but I just want maybe unpack a particular one that was really the most challenging for you, but led to your biggest breakthrough.
A particular experience,
Yeah,
personal experience,
yeah,
led to my breakthrough.
biggest
There's a
breakthrough.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there's a few, but I guess the biggest breakthrough was the near-death experience I've had in 2013. See, it wasn't it wasn't meant to be that way. I was just going in for a run-of-the-mill standard shoulder surgery. I had this let's unpack it, right? So what happened was I had pain in my shoulder. I
Mm,
went to the doctor, and then the doctor did everything, ultrasound, x-ray, whatnot, and even like blood tests. And so they found that in my shoulder there was a dislodgement of the joints, but also there was a growth from one of the joints, so that whenever I moved my shoulder, the growth tickled the joint, and so that's why it hurt so much. And just by the way that the injury looked, the doctor said this is a very old injury, caused by high impact sports.
mm.
I was like, I don't play sports.
Yeah. Like what?
So, and the doctor chuckled. He was like, but high impact. So he was trying to insinuate something that was left unsaid.
Mm,
And what I can really, if I was to think back, it would have been one of the incidents with a former partner,
mm,
that I've just probably didn't really take. I had too many other things going on, so I didn't so much take notice of it. But so it became that way. The injury became that way. So the solution was a simple arthroscopy. And so they put me down in a general anesthesia, and then I'll wake up and ta-da, I'll be on a sling for 6 weeks. I'm all good. But the problem was because I was in a very disempowered state. This was the time when my relationship at the time, it was nearing the end of the relationship, but it was very tumultuous.
mm,
I was so emotionally abused, and the abuse was also mutual, because I was just I was an angry person. And so the problem was, on that day in the operating table, that I said to the doctor, please, can you please make sure I'll be okay? Because I want to be here for my children. And I was crying. I was upset.
mm,
Now the doctor said, sure, you'll be fine. But what happened was I almost did not wake up. I had an overdose in anesthesia. And what happened is that they said, because you were really, really upset before the surgery, we thought it was necessary to give you just a little bit more. And it so happened that my body didn't agree with that little bit more. And so I almost did not wake up. And so I was really, the recovery hour was pretty traumatic. I
mm.
was like coughing out blood everywhere and whatnot. And I had all this uh, hallucination of whatever. but I recovered. So my lesson from there is that what if I didn't wake up?
Mm.
How did I live my life?
Yeah.
Like, is this how I want to live my life for the rest of my life? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, what is really going on here?
Yeah.
And that was in March or no, March 2013. And for the rest of the year, it was just one significant event after another. I just started to make really, really bold decisions.
Yeah.
So what happened there, Kaki, is that for once in my life, I realized something, and it's a very important breakthrough, because what I realized was, as human beings, we do everything that we do because we love ourselves. So self-love is an ever-present emotion. We all love ourselves. The problem with self-love is that there are two paradigms of self-love. There is a fear-based self-love and a fearless self-love. And what I found was, through my research and my experiences, most of us act from a fear-based paradigm of self-love,
Yeah.
because we're conditioned to do that when we were children, especially for those of us who've had traumatic incidents. So everything I did was because I love myself. I stayed in the job because it's a good job. It pays for the bills. But the reason I stayed there is because of the money. It was secure, even though I knew that it wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't really what I loved to do. The reason why I entered that toxic relationship is because I had a belief that I couldn't raise two children on my own as a single mother. So it didn't really matter who I was in a relationship with. As long as I was in a relationship, I was in fear. I was believing things out of fear, so that it manifested into decisions and actions that were also fear-based.
Yeah.
And so inadvertently, it will just become a vicious cycle. So fear-based belief, fear-based decisions and action, it just goes back on and on and on. So that's what I've uncovered. And so I challenged myself. I said, okay, all right, so how do I become fearless? And I did a what I call now a life inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So I listed people, places, and experiences, and I examined what these people, these places, and these experiences were giving to me, whether they are raising me up or they pulling me down. And if they were pulling me down, they belong to the fear-based paradigm of self-love. And so I thought, okay, so if and the list was so long of the fear-based.
I
So I said,
bet.
yeah, I thought I had to change that into bold decisions, fearless decisions. And so one of them was in the bank. Another fear-based belief that you tend to learn working with older generation working in the bank is that you have to pay your mortgage first before you start to enjoy your life.
Yeah.
So don't travel, don't have fun, put all your savings into your mortgage. So that's what I did. And then after that near-death experience, I was like, no, I'm going to Europe just because I want to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to take this thing about pay your mortgage first. I've got, I'll take my savings and go to Europe. So just one bold decision after the other. And the next thing, I released the toxic relationship. Scary, but oh my God, it was a long time coming. Just stuff like that. And the more that you grow into your fearless self, the
Yeah.
more that you realize, God, where have I been all these years? This is life.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And it's so true. Making decisions from fear and from love is you you don't really see until you have that self-awareness that you're actually acting from fear. Until you wake up to that, you don't actually understand why you make all those decisions, and then you wonder, why am I continuing in this spiral of the same things happening all the time? Like with yourself, with the toxic relationships, is because you hadn't learned that lesson because you were in this fear. But once you released it, look at where you are now, coming from that place. So it's amazing. So
Yeah, that's so true when you say about until something happens to you, you're not really aware that you're acting from fear. And I guess my mission is that I don't want women to get into a point where they have extreme incidents like a near-death experience like myself, because you can start to be self-aware now, even though you haven't had like a massive, massive awakening like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to empower women and men as well to develop that self-awareness so they can see where they're at and to work to where they want to be. Yeah. So, Grace, what do you believe? I mean, you've touched on this, but in a quick summary, do you believe is the greatest lessons you've learnt in your life so far?
Greatest lessons. I've learned that forgiveness is not about the other person, but it's about loving yourself. If when you you hear this phrase a lot, I am worthy, I am enough, and it translates to, are you worthy enough so that you will forgive the people that you feel have done you wrong? See, the truth is that no one's done you wrong, because I have this mentor. She's passed away now. She passed away in 2010, and if on in her deathbed, oh my God, Mary, yeah, she gifted me a piece of wisdom in 2010. In like January 2010, she passed away in March. A piece of wisdom that I was not able to embrace until years and years later. But she made me promise that I was not to forget the piece of wisdom that she was leaving me. And this is what she said. She was a counselor, but she was my friend more than anything.
Mm,
She said to me, Grace, I want you to remember one thing, and I want you to promise me that you will think about what I'm about to say to you. And I said, yes. And she said, I'm telling you this because I know that you find it very hard to forgive. And what I want to say to you is that everybody does their best at the time that they're doing something. You and I, we do our best. We have done the best that we can in everything that we've done in the past. And that includes your mother for what she did to you, includes your ex-husband for what's happened between the two of you. And as hard as it is to believe, as bitter as it is to swallow, it includes even the criminals who did the thing that they did at the time. Everybody does their best at the time that they're doing it. You need to learn to love yourself, and and grant the fact that we all do the best that we can at the time that we do it. And she said, just don't forget what I'm saying. You don't have to understand it, but don't forget it. And because I knew it was a gift, I made a promise, and I thought about it a lot for a long time. I didn't really understand it
yeah.
until I started my spiritual healing about 2 years, just shortly after you and I met in that
Yeah.
personal development retreat. And that's the thing, is that self-love is the biggest lesson, and part of self-love is to heal yourself, and know that uh, people did not do you wrong. They were there for a purpose. Like, imagine if my mother was a different kind of mother. Like, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be pursuing the calling. I wouldn't be here empowering women to change the world. So it's you must celebrate them for the things that they've done to you, but also celebrate them for the things that you have become because of
Yeah.
what they have done. And that was big. That was really big. And so part of that is also self-forgiveness, because along the way you are going to hurt others, hurt yourself, but you've done your best,
Yeah.
and so it's a big thing to think about, and it's a process to get there.
Yeah.
But I'm determined to hold the hand of people who are willing to take the journey.
Yeah. I love that. And such a great piece of wisdom from your friend. And I'm so
Mm.
glad that you've now integrated and have, come to understand where she was coming from. So that's really beautiful. And it is true, like forgiving yourself and forgiving others. You don't I mean, when everything you do, sometimes I think back and go, oh, that was probably not the best thing that I did in the past, but is being able to forgive yourself instead of replaying that picture as well. Sometimes you get into this, I guess, loop where
Mm.
like if you sometimes, like for me, in the past, I might have said something, and because I didn't love myself enough to go, oh well, that's actually, I didn't mean to say it in a mean way, but other people, like in my head, right, people might think that I mean it a certain way, but I didn't mean it, and it comes playing in your head. And it's then being able to forgive yourself and go, look, that was the best that I could do at the time. Forgive yourself for what you said. And yeah, it
Yeah.
it's also
Yeah.
those kind of things. It might be little things, but obviously there's the big things that you need to forgive yourself for. But every little thing you forgive yourself for lets you free up that heart space to accept more love.
Yeah, that's so important, Kaki. I mean, the little things are actually very fundamental, because if when you try and do something with the little things, you'll never get to big incidents. And one of the tools, because the tools are very important, like it's all good to talk about these these big picture, big ideas and big wisdom,
Mm,
but really the techniques and the skill sets and the tools that we can use so we can be self-aware and self-masters. And one of the things that I find very useful, and I teach this in my workshops, is journaling. Because self-talk,
yeah,
right, so your brain will believe everything you say. It doesn't really know the difference between right or wrong,
yeah,
and it will just, it's very powerful. If you say something, what you say is. So it's so the to train yourself to talk to yourself in a very empowering way cannot be galvanized if you just do it verbally.
yeah,
So you've got to set it into something tangible. And one of the tangible ways that you can do that is to write it down. You can record it on an audio if you have a way of compiling your daily journals on an audio recording. But for most of us, let's just use the general population who prefer to write down in a journal. So just daily journals of affirmation and gratitude. And what it does is there's this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I think chapter 12 or chapter 13 of that book talks about the brain. And the brain is that it needs an ether. It actually needs something that it can latch on so that it will catch the idea.
mm-hmm,
Now, if you just let, so your awareness is the sky, right? Now, if your brain is always moving with the clouds, if you just let that move through with verbal words, like you're saying, I am worthy, I am enough. But if you don't have an ether, if you don't have a way for it to latch on, it's not gonna stick. It's not gonna galvanize as effectively. But whereas if you write it down, then it's set there in writing. And what happens when journaling is that, and even many personal development teachers teach this, is what happened when you journal is that you look back into your journal 6 months from before, or 12 months ago, you see the growth of the person who was writing that journal 6 months ago. You
yeah,
see yourself 12 months ago, and these were the way that you thought about things, and now these were the way that it's a very tangible way of loving yourself. It's a
yeah,
committed way of loving yourself.
yeah,
I'm committed to my growth, and it's like planting. Like you plant. You don't just plant and say I'm gonna plant and then it's gonna happen.
yeah,
You actually cultivate, do the fertilizer,
yeah.
water it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And journaling is such a big part for me as well. It's a morning ritual that I do, and I love going back and reading things from, 6 months, a year ago. I have all my journals in a little box, and it's all like coded and dated and and but it is just reading something from even like 2 years ago. It doesn't seem like a long time, but when I look back, I was, wow, I'm just such a different person. And it makes you feel good, right? When you go back and go, wow, I've grown so much. And it doesn't seem like you have, but
Yeah.
yeah, right. Because it's 2 years and you're like, oh, the change is slow. It
Yeah.
seems slow, but
Yeah.
it's actually a short period of time.
It's like when you're with your kids every day and they grow and you don't see it, and then someone sees them after like 5 years. I'm like, oh my God, look at you. But you don't really notice it because you're there. It's like you with yourself. Like you don't
Yeah.
know that you've grown. But when you see your journals, then you see, oh my God, look how much I've grown. So
Yeah.
it's like it's a tangible way of galvanizing and honoring yourself and your growth. That's
Yeah.
exactly how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So, Grace, having gone through everything that you have, can you share with us some of the tools or teachers that were really helpful in your healing process?
Yes, so one of that is journaling.
Mm-hmm.
The other is learning to meditate. Now, the thing about meditation is that a lot of people balk at the terminology of meditation. I was spending quite a bit of time this year with a family member, very close family member. They were staying with me for 4 weeks. and they were actually going through some very difficult times in their life. And I was, trying to show them what meditation does. But I found that, especially in other countries, like I think in Asia, meditation is still well, maybe not so much in the Buddhist community, but in the Philippines, I'm talking in particular, is meditation is not well understood. So how I teach meditation in my workshops now is that I assume that not everyone knows how to meditate like you and me. So meditation is really just silence and just contemplating and focusing on your breath. And what that does is it literally um, affects your parasympathetic nerves, and so it settles you down. And so the frequency with which you're operating on is you're operating on from a cluttered mind, you're operating on a very busy frequency. But when you meditate, it just soothes you and it calms you down. And what it does is it sets you up for your day if you do it daily. And again, it's like growth. You don't notice what it does to you, but I've seen this so many times in the last 3 years of my life, events, incidents happening to me, and I'm wondering, how did I react so calmly? And if I really look and dissect, I could only put it down to meditation.
Yeah.
Like, it must be the meditation that's working.
Yeah.
Because and that's what I teach, is that the measure of how much you listen to stillness is the way that you react to unexpected things. Case in point, at the beginning of COVID, I had on the first week of our lockdown, when Tom Hanks and his wife were hospitalized in the Gold Coast Hospital, just so we have a clear timeline here.
Yeah.
So they were hospitalized there with COVID. At the same time, there was a woman that sent me some really nasty messages, demanding me to send her money, saying I should be paying for her friends to come over from Sydney for her hospital bills because I've given her coronavirus, because I was responsible for this, for that. And she was using some swear words. And she was meant to be, a scientist, but she was acting from fear. And the reason that she thinks that I gave it to her is because we were in a conference the week before that together, and I was a TV show host.
Yeah.
And being the TV show host, I was speaking to almost everyone, and everyone was giving me hugs and kisses. And so she was like, for all the people she can give vendetta to, she's chosen me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but anyway, and she was assassinating my character in public. And so it was severe. It was like a thrown into the deep end type of experience right from the beginning of COVID. But my reaction was that it was, first I was shocked, and then I felt sorry, and then the sympathy moved quickly into compassion. I was like, oh, like, this person, the one thing that she needs most is love.
Yeah.
And that's what she's wanting and looking for, except she doesn't know how to ask for it.
Yeah.
The way that she's asking for it is out of fear. And I've, if she didn't threaten me with lawyers and whatnot, I probably would have gone to the hospital and looked after her. But she pushed it so far that I chose just to disengage. I blocked her from Facebook, and I went to the CEO of the conference and said, you handle this, because this was your conference, and I'll leave it with you. So practically I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But what my point is that things will happen to you, and that is the measuring stick of how much you listen to your inner self, and how much you're committed to really become a self master.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a mom, I know the love that you have for your children, or if you're a dad listening to this one, or just think about the love that you have for your family. You do anything for them.
Yeah.
And you'll find that the biggest problems that come to us in our lives, they can really never be solved by money, really never be solved by anything that's invented by human beings, except they can be solved by love and compassion and calm. And that all cultivates from stillness. That all cultivates from listening into ourselves and just letting go of all the clutter in our minds. So meditation is a real tool. I cannot encourage you enough to go out there, find a person that fits you, to take you through a silence experience, a breath experience. and so that you can have that powerful, powerful, powerful tool. And the journaling, and just look after your body as well, is a real tool.
Yeah.
um, as of this is I'm passionate about this because I'm a 45-year-old woman speaking to women who are, going into their 40s, and metabolically we're not the same as we were in our 20s. And so it's very important because peak state starts from peak biology, and then everything else follows.
Yeah. It's also that having that mind body spirit connection, really like ensuring that you tap into that, because a lot of, I think in society we're conditioned to just run ourselves down to the ground, right? So that our
Mm.
physical being is just screaming out for help, and having that help, that connection where you honor yourself and love yourself and look after your mind, body, and spirit is so important to have that peak performance as well. Yeah. And I just love all those tools that you've mentioned. Meditation is a big thing as well for me. And as you say, you can only control your own emotions. You can't control what others do or how they act. So, you could have quite easily attacked her back, right? If you didn't have that awareness and that stillness that you have, right? And a
She
lot of
did that to
people,
me 5 years ago. I probably would have,
yeah,
she would,
exactly.
yeah. But,
Yeah, so you would have and then it would just been this big,
mm,
intense,
yeah.
yeah, experience. Whereas you just like, I send her love and that's it, and you just got on with your life. How easy is that? And there's so many people that brew over like the smallest things, right? Being able
Yeah.
to just let it go and move on with your life is just a beautiful thing that you can do for yourself.
Yes. It's so it's such a symbol of self-love,
Yeah,
fearless self-love, like, yeah, compassion is a profound thing. And
yeah,
because I guess I recognized myself in her years and years back, so it was easy for me to see, wow, like.
yeah,
And so I gave her love because that's what I needed at the time.
yeah,
Like, we are all connected, we are all on a journey.
yeah. I love that. So, Grace, is there a particular book that has changed your life?
Yes, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
You're the
Yeah.
second person that said that to me, so I really think it's a sign that I need to read it now.
Yeah, it changed my
Yeah.
life. My partner gave it to me for a birthday present in year 2016. So that was only 4 years ago. But what it did to me was, because I was already starting to be self-aware and working on myself,
Mm,
but it made me shift my perspective about my past,
yeah,
about the pain that I was holding on to. And I understood a few concepts there that are so profound. Like, there's a thing in the book called the pain body.
yeah,
And the pain, but it's oh yeah, please read the book, you guys, when you have a chance. The pain body is an entity, and this is Pandora. I've mentioned Pandora
yeah,
before. She's such a classic.
yeah,
But and you will have uh the pain body come to your life to remind you to address that. It's a form of ego,
yeah,
but it's a more specific type of ego.
yeah,
And also just the story of his awakening.
yeah,
It was really graphic. It was right in the beginning of the book.
yeah,
And how the book was also written was, it was just like series of hundreds of interviews that he's had with his spiritual students over a period of many years. And so it's like this. It's like talking about one particular concept in 1,000 different ways, because he addresses many different questions from many different people who
mm,
sees the power of now in many different facets. And so they go, but what about this? But what about that? And so it's a really engaging book,
oh,
because and it has symbols as well. So it will tell you what the symbols are for. So for example, if you find a symbol in a page where it looks like this, it means that you're meant to stop reading the book and spend time to contemplate on that particular. It will guide you. It's not just
Yeah.
a go for it and good luck kind of book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I love the power of now.
Oh, yeah, it's a sign that I need to read it now. So thank you for bringing that
You're
up.
welcome.
So Grace, if you could go back in a time machine and go to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Which younger version of myself, the 5-year-old?
And well, you choose. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, I'll give you a couple of younger versions. So if I was to go back to my 5-year-old, I'm not really gonna give her any advice. I'll just give her love and
Mm,
hugs and kisses, and I'm not gonna give her any words to influence her belief systems, any advice that could potentially shape the way that she may not necessarily want to shape the way she thinks and believes. But what she needs most is love, and love can only be shown, not told.
yeah.
And so I will show her love, hugs, kisses, just be with her, hold her hand, eat with her and play with her. That would be what I do. But if I could use words to the younger version of me, then I would probably go back to my 14, 15-year-old self. Most of us have already formed our egos by the age of 9 or 10. So
Mm,
to speak to someone over 10 years old, it's not, you're not necessarily influencing them
yeah.
in a massive way. So I could say to my 14, 15-year-old, I would say to her to keep writing, because it is the footprints of your soul, little Gracie. Because I loved writing right from when I was young, but I felt that, except that I didn't really give myself that much credit for my writing until when I hit the university.
Yeah.
But I remember loving writing way, way before that,
Yeah.
except that I was, yeah, no one was there to encourage me. No one was there to say, that's great, or, keep writing. But I would, like, if
Yeah.
I could whisper to her, just nudge, nudge, just keep
Yeah.
doing it, girl.
Yeah.
You're on it. Yeah.
Nice. So,
Yeah.
Grace, we talked about, we touched on COVID. So, this year has been a big year of change for the world. So, and people are starting their awakening journey. A lot of people are waking up to, what's not serving them, what their life is looking like, and how they want to change it up. And obviously, with making those changes, there's a lot of limiting beliefs and fear that was probably hold them back from even taking that first step, because comfort zone is very comfortable, even if it's not the best place to be. So what advice or recommendations would you give to them to get rid of limiting beliefs or any fear that is holding them back from making that transition into a newer, better life?
Yeah, first of all, look, we're now, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months into COVID. And so there's
Mm,
been many different variations of awakening for people now.
yeah,
And even some people probably have phase 2 of awakening. So, but it goes back to just really simplifying everything. It is a sign. And I dare say, this is not the only one we're going to get in the next 100 years. I mean, it's as bad as that sounds. We have been running for at a speed that was really fast compared to the first few 100 years that we've been living, that we were due for a big smack bang. So really to take it back to the basics and just simplify. So you will find that there are things that are going to confuse you. If it confuses you, then it's probably something that's either not necessary for you to think about, or it means that you really have to simplify things around you so you can get clarity. Clarity is what everybody needs. And because everything is uncertain, what's going to happen, I've lost my job, or the business, how is it going to look like when COVID comes back, or and even the schooling of the children, and what about this vaccine, just everything is so uncertain. There is no status quo. And so with that uncertainty, people are trying to get the opposite, which is clarity. And the thing with clarity is that it's already all inside of us.
Yeah.
But what I would advise people is to stop looking for clarity outside. Stop cluttering your mind. Stop going online and looking for things, shopping or buying or continuously engaging in unnecessary conversations. Don't look outside of yourself. It's already in here. And if you need to simplify, declutter, decompress, unplug yourself, do so. Like I, for example, have been doing a little bit of that in the last couple of weeks. So I do volunteer in a couple of communities and organizations because I'm passionate about that.
Mm.
But I've decided to take a hiatus for the next few months until the end of the year because my priorities is not in alignment with that for now. I have a business that's still running that I've decided to unplug from, even though I could potentially lose profit from there, because right now it doesn't serve the simplification of my life. And my life is all about focusing on how can we be more empowered as women. Like what I live for now is my family, my health, and empowering other people. Everything else is like, yes, so it's really simplifying. If you're a mom, look after yourself, look after your children, and look after your best self, however that looks like. If you're getting so much information, then make it simple. Just do one thing at a time, one little mission per week.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so and then build from that mission. If you've got a mission this week, if you've done 80% of that mission, build from it next week. Don't jump to a new mission. So whatever that is, if that's a project, build it. And if you build it to 110%, good for you.
Yeah.
So what more can you build out of it? But don't jump from one thing to another,
Yeah.
and make sure that it's all authentic in here. Yeah.
I love that. Focusing on that one thing. We're in a society where, multitasking is seen to be a good thing, but you can't get anything done with multitasking. And the energy that you dispense from your body with multitasking, that is so much, and it's all scattered energy. Whereas if you focus on that one thing, your energy is focused on that one thing, and you'll actually feel a lot more energized and feel a lot more productive as well. So yeah, that's
Yeah, that is
yeah,
scientifically proven too,
yeah,
isn't it? Like,
yeah,
and it's I think they found that multitasking is not possible. What's happening is that we're not doing multiple tasks at one time. The truth is that what's happening with the brain is it's doing multiple tasks at a really really fast speed, that just jumping from one task
yeah,
to another, to this to this. So it's not, so it's just making all this bzzz, this frequency that's
yeah,
really scattered, like you said. And
yeah.
so scientifically it's just a biological nightmare.
Yes.
So, and yeah, and women are better at the business. We can shift
Yeah.
faster than men can do. So we're known to be the multitasker, but it's actually not serving us.
Yes,
So yeah, to
definitely.
just decompress.
Yes, decompress and just, chill out and just focus on one thing, the things that you love to do. And, I think when you are in that flow of doing things that you love to do and you focus on one thing, you'll find that you'll get a lot more clarity as to what you want to do moving forward. Yeah. Awesome. So, Grace, let's take a little bit of a turn. We've talked about self-love, and again, for me, that was also the biggest part of my journey. So, I know you're a mum and you're a busy entrepreneur. You're writing your book, which is about to be released. So I'm super excited because I'll love to read it. What are your top 3 go-to activities to make sure you give yourself that self-love?
Ooh. Yes. So I live in northern New South Wales on the coast. So we have some really beautiful beaches here. And my top number one go-to is I have this secret track
Cool.
along the beach. It's not a secret, but I feel it's a secret because it's like really like skinny and surrounded by. So I like to imagine, oh, I'm my secret track. But
Yeah.
I do that walk. So I go up and then down, and then halfway around that walk, there's like a little cafe, and I would order myself a little acai bowl or a juice, and look at the beach. And so
Nice.
I'd say that's my one go-to self-love. The other one is to go for a drive south, not north. So go down to Byron Bay, go down to, so just doing driving is therapeutic for me if it is going south, not going north.
Okay.
Because it's just a really nice scenery and there's hardly any traffic. So for me, that's a form of self-love because I get to I get to just spend time with me
Yeah.
and talk to me and laugh with me.
Yeah.
And most of the time, me and myself will listen to personal development materials or podcasts,
Yeah.
and just be with me, just enjoy my own company.
Yeah.
And so the walking and then spending time with my loved ones is a go-to, definitely, for sure. And that would be cooking in the kitchen and having a banner with the boys about the chocolate cake, or me and my partner watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my pajamas.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, just simple things are my go-to.
Yeah.
It used to be also cooking, but right now I'm trying to eat more raw foods, so not so much cooking now. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your favorite things to do. And Grace, you're such an amazing, inspirational woman. I really loved our conversation today. But I just really would like to know what's setting your soul on fire right now.
Well, um, right now, as in the immediate term, my book is setting my soul on fire because it's about to be released, and I'm doing the finishing touches of it. And the reason I say that it's really igniting me is because finally I get to tell the story. It is the very first true story ever written about abandonment in the Philippines, and it's a brave book
Yeah.
because, like I said, it's an epidemic in the Philippines, but no one ever dares talk about
Mm.
the repercussions of abandonment in their lives. And so this is going to open up some conversations, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, I'm proud that I get to do that,
Yeah.
because I know, even though a lot of people will raise their eyebrows as to why I've actually chosen to tell the story, I know that long after I'm gone, it's going to set the tone as to how people are going to be consciously doing life for
Mm.
themselves and for other people. And so, and I intend to talk about this story for a long time coming. In fact, another thing that's setting my soul on fire is that I've been invited to a conference in Paris in March next year. And what's really got my interest in that conference when I was invited was, it is a women health and women empowerment conference. But if you look at the speaker list, most of the speakers are scientists, like they're talking about actual biological
Mm.
scientific things like women's endocrine health, women's, I don't know, uh, physical health. It's like all academic and biological.
Yeah.
And I'm not an academic. Like, I didn't really like school.
Yeah.
But where I fall, they say, is in the women empowerment side. And so I'm so pumped to be able to share on a global stage about my passion for really reducing the epidemic of abandonment by empowering women,
Yeah.
and just to be able to spread that word globally, so that the awareness is not just locally, but that people start to think about, hang on a second, you know, if if all children are loved and become healthy human beings and raise healthy human beings, if we look at 200 years from now, if all children are loved, would we ever have things like, in the past, like people like Osama bin Laden, or really tragic incidents? Like, i think that I think that the radicals of our time,
Yeah.
they all had experiences when they were little that impacted the way that they made decisions and actions and followed their legacy. People like, if you look at the comparison between, I don't know, Adolf Hitler or Mahatma Gandhi,
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela, or just bad and good.
Mm.
Like, what was the difference? I bet that if you unpack and dissect the belief, the paradigms that was driving those actions and decisions, you come to a place where the fear base goes into the people that impacted the globe in a negative way, and the fearless paradigms
Yeah.
belong to people like Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
so
love
that's, yeah, I know I'm not going to be here in 200 years
that.
physically, but I'll be here
Never know.
spiritually, probably in another different form.
Yeah.
So, we're all connected. So
Yes.
I'm really passionate. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool that you'll be speaking on an international stage in Paris, and in a in a conference that seemed, with the logic and very masculine, but bringing in that beautiful feminine energy of empowerment and how to create that change that will ripple and take effect, that legacy, right, as you put it. Yeah, love that. Oh, thank you, beautiful Grace. I've loved having you share your love and wisdom with us today. If people want to find out more about you and how they can work with you, where should they go?
Yes, so please go to my website. So there are two. You can go to www.becomethewomanofyourdreamsacademy.com, or just about www.thegraceharris.com, or follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn. You can easily find me on Grace Harris, writer and speaker. That's Facebook, or just Grace Harris on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all your details and any recommended resources available in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again, beautiful Grace,
Thanks,
and for all
Kaki.
the
It's
work you're
been
doing in
such
the
a
world.
lovely time.
Thank
I'll
you.
talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, until next time, I love you, I believe in you, and you are worth taking that first step to the life of your dreams.